Are you feeling nervous about your new ghost hunting position? Or maybe you're tired of walking around suburban households aimlessly for hours and hours until the ghost appears and you get your shit rocked. Or maybe you've been researching Phasmophobia guides for 7 hours without eating or blinking. Hi, I'm Al. This is my Phasmophobia new recruit training video. I noticed after gaining a little bit of metaphorical hair on my chest in the world of Phasmophobia that there are a lot of little bits of information that are very integral to doing well at the game, but that information is not available online at all, at least not in the Phasmophobia guides that I've watched. When entering a new household, the most important tools at your disposal are your ears, EMF, and Thermo. Now, Tier 1 thermometer right now is phenomenal for helping find the ghost room. You can just walk into ghost rooms and see where is the temperature dropping after a few minutes when the house is warmed up a little bit. But it has been said that the devs are planning to nerf the Tier 1 Thermo and make it a lot less accurate. As of right now, it's 100% accurate, and I use it over the Tier 3 thermometer, even though that's available to me. So one of these... Amazing. One of these two doors were just touched. I heard it touched, and that is an excellent time to illustrate that your ears are the most important tools that you have to locate the ghost room. EMF is very helpful. It is best to use EMF in a little bit more of a targeted way. So just now I heard a noise from this direction. I'm using headphones right now so I can hear really well and know where things are coming from. And I walked over with the EMF reader to try and identify where the noise came from. Unfortunately, with the Tier 1 EMF reader, it's kind of hard to get readings, but that's fine. I still got the gist, and I know that the ghost is very likely to be somewhere in this area. You hear it just open this door? All right, you little bugger. Now look at that. It's being so wild and crazy. It doesn't know how to contain itself. We're watching the temperatures go down right now on my Tier 1 Thermo, which means that I've likely located the ghost room or I'm close to the ghost room. So we're gonna go ahead and see if we can find a good place. Did you hear that locker touch? That's one of the unique ones for Tanglewood. If I hear a locker being touched, I know exactly where to go every single time. All right, guys, now by the temperature going down, I think we may have found our ghost room. We're here. You can see the temperature going down on the thermometer. That's how I know that I'm in the ghost room right now. Of course, this can be a little deceiving sometimes, but it's pretty accurate to find the ghost room using Tier 1 thermometer. Hiding spots should be located as soon as possible when you first enter the house. You can sort of create a mental log of where each hiding spot is so that when a hunt occurs, you won't have to think about it. You'll just know exactly where to go. A lot of people have a conception that it's best to have hiding spots that are close to the ghost room so that you can hide easily, which makes a lot of sense in theory, but in practice, it's usually best to hide as far away from the ghost room as possible when possible. Of course, don't put yourself in any dangerous situations to do this, but that reduces the likelihood of a ghost randomly wandering to where you are and opening a closet door and killing you in 2 seconds. By a lot, especially when you're on amateur or intermediate difficulties or what have you. You have a really long phase between when the ghost starts making noises and when it actually starts hunting. While we're on the subject of hunting, I want to talk about the difference between events and hunts. For obvious reasons, I'm not going to be able to show you an example of every single different event type and every single different hunt type during this video, but what I will do is give you a brief overview. So how do you tell that a hunt is happening in the first place? This is the number one question that is always gonna baffle the newbies and experienced players alike, because often events and hunts are virtually identical at the start. The main identifier between events and hunts is the grace period or lack thereof. If you're on amateur, intermediate, or professional, you're going to have some sort of grace period between when the ghost starts flickering lights and making noises and when it actually begins to hunt. So often what will happen is during events, the lights will start flickering, ghost noises will start happening, and immediately there will also be footsteps that you can hear from the ghost. Events and hunts can be virtually identical. The door will slam during some events, but if you're ever not sure whether you're witnessing an event or a hunt, Don't try to look cool in front of your friends, just go hide. Looking cool in front of your team is never more important than preserving your life. So there are a few events that can immediately be identified as events when you see them. I'm going to list them real quick. For instance, singing events. So female ghosts will sing Ring Around the Rosie and male ghost will sort of like have a hum. This is always an event. You don't have to worry if you hear Ring Around the Rosie. Basically, the ghost is just standing there looking like a dope, like looking behind itself, and just singing a little tune. Nothing scary about that, if you ask me. This is also a great and low stakes time to take a ghost photo. Another one is red light events. So the lights will turn red. That's not a hunt, it's just an event. Also, shattering light events. If the light shatters, the ghost will make like a scary noise and then it'll go psh. That's an event. And there are a host of other events that are a lot harder to differentiate. Maxter has a really great video on this. I recommend checking her out. Her video helped me tremendously with identifying events versus hunts. I highly, highly recommend it. So when you're done with this video, go ahead and check hers out. However, always remember, when in doubt, just get out. While we're in the truck, let's briefly discuss sanity management. Guys, most ghosts can't hunt you if your sanity is above 50%. So right now, if I'm in the house, I feel completely and totally safe. I'm not worried about anything at all. Most ghosts won't be able to hunt me at this rate. It's important to note that if you're in a group, only average sanity is taken into account. So it's not going to be anybody's personal sanity. Most of the time, there's an exception with Banshee, but the ghost will not take individual sanity into account. So if you are at 100% sanity and your friend is at 50% sanity, you're safe for quite a while. Let's talk about how to identify the different evidence types. So the equipment that's provided to you is obviously the most important tool that you have at your disposal for finding the ghost. Before we proceed, it's really important to note that there are a lot of myths surrounding tools in Phasmophobia. I'm going to cover those more at the end of this guide in the myths section, along with other common misconceptions about the game. So this section will have really valuable info for people of all skill levels on when to rule out evidence. But if you're feeling really confident in your abilities, feel free to skip to the end of this video using chapters. So let's start with Spirit Box. So the lights have to be off for you to use Spirit Box, and the Spirit Box only uses a few accepted phrases. So the ones that I normally say are you here? Are you close? Are you friendly? I'm going to demonstrate for you real quick. Are you here?
Right here.
He's right here, guys. So as you can see, Spirit Box is pretty easy to get most of the time, as long as the ghost is in range. However, it is a little difficult when you're using the tier 1 Spirit Box most of the time. I got pretty lucky at that instance. I think it's important to note that you do not have to say the phrases very slowly. You can say them pretty quick, which makes your job a bit quicker. You'll see the little indicator light next to the ghost light up whenever the game recognizes a phrase that you said. If the indicator light does not light up, that means the game didn't recognize your phrase. If you're using Spirit Box and you're having trouble getting it, sometimes it's a good idea to wait for an event and then run to where you saw the ghost during the event and use the Spirit Box there, because when the ghost does the event, that means that the ghost is in that location after the event's over. So even though it's disappeared, if you're standing on top of where the ghost was and you're trying to get Spirit Box and you're not getting it, it's pretty logical to rule out Spirit Box at that point. Look at that, EMF 5. So you guys just saw a really clear EMF 5 reading. That's very important knowledge to have, what an EMF 5 reading looks like, because it is very, very confusing for most people when starting the game on how to get EMF 5 from a tier 1 EMF reader. And the reason for that is because often the needle will go and like touch the 5, but it doesn't go past it. You're only getting EMF 5 when the needle goes past the 5 on the EMF reader. That's when you know you got EMF 5, not a second before. The best way to use EMF is to listen for a noise and then run toward it and use your EMF reader precisely. Especially when you're using the tier 1 EMF reader, because the range on it is so poor. It's also important to note that EMF readings do not count during events or hunts. You will get EMF 5 during events and you will get EMF 5 during hunts a lot of the time because your equipment is just bugging out. That does not count. It only counts if you're getting EMF 5 when it's not during an event or a hunt. This is one of those things that I think is really important that no one talks about in video guides is probability. So when a ghost has EMF 5 as evidence, there is a 1 in 4 chance of an EMF 5 reading occurring anytime it interacts with something. So if you are being very precise with your EMF reader and you hear 4 door touches, objects being touched or thrown or anything like that, and you're going toward them with your EMF reader and you're not getting EMF 5 after about 5 or 6 attempts, it's pretty safe to rule out EMF with a high degree of accuracy. However, this is ill-advised for new recruits because a lot of people really struggle with getting EMF 5 readings in the first place. So err on the side of caution until you get those more advanced EMF readers, at which point it'll be a lot easier for you to rule out evidence in general. I'm checking Thermo and it looks like the temperature's just now dipping right below 32. Now, an important thing to note about Thermo is that when you're in a big open area, such as this kitchen/dining room area, the ghost has a lot of room to roam around, and the freezing temperatures don't just happen in the ghost room, they kind of follow the ghost. So if the ghost is moving around a lot, it can sometimes take a very long time to find freezing temps. So do not be too trigger happy about ruling out freezing temperatures. It is usually good, accurate, smart to rule out freezing temps when the mercury portion sticks above 32 for a really long time. I'm American, or sticks above 0 for a really long time. But when you're in a wide open space like this place or like the living room, sometimes the ghost is just roaming too much and it takes a million years for you to get freezing temps, and that's just how it is. Using the ghost writing book is really easy. You just use F to place it, and the ghost will write in it if it wants to interact with it and if it's in range. So orbs are a really easy evidence to rule out because as long as you've correctly identified the ghost room, there will be orbs in the room 100% of the time if the ghost is a ghost that gives orbs as evidence. It is pretty hard to see ghost orbs on the tier 1 video cam. It gets a lot easier with the subsequent video cams, but it's not too bad if you know what you're looking for. So right here, you can see the orb sort of moving up toward the top of the video cam's viewfinder. You see that? Those are the orbs. They're a lot easier to see in the truck, especially with the tier 1 video cam. Let's talk about dots. So dots are very easy to see, but the tier 1 dots give a very narrow light. So to sort of mitigate that, I recommend placing the tier 1 dots crossed like this. That'll make it a lot easier to see results when you get them. Similar to EMF, UV is really easy to get when you're using a targeted approach. So just as a little bit of knowledge, when a ghost has UV evidence as one of its evidence types, it has a 100% chance of leaving UV evidence whenever it interacts with something that it would normally leave evidence on, such as like a door touch or slapping a cooler or touching a light switch or something like that, that would leave UV evidence. So if the ghost has UV as an evidence type and it touches something, for instance, a door, it will leave UV evidence if it has UV as an evidence type. So for that reason, it's really, really easy to rule out UV. If you hear a door being touched, you walk up with your EMF reader to verify that you've got the correct door, and then you whip out your UV stick and you don't see any UV evidence, you can rule out UV almost immediately. The one exception to this rule is the Dio. Hey girly, it's Al from the future. I don't know why I said Dio. I'm in Obake. I hope you're having fun. Bye. Which has a 1 in 3 chance. Is it 1 in 3? Yeah, I believe it's a 1 in 3 chance to hide its UV evidence. It's smart to check for UV 2 times before ruling it out completely. And certainly if you notice that a ghost is hiding UV evidence, it's safe to assume that it's a Dio. Well, I was really hoping to talk about like optional items and consumables and cursed items in this video, but we are running a little long. So I think I'll save that for later if anyone's interested. In lieu of that, we'll move on to our next portion, which is the myths versus facts portion. So moving on to the myths section, myth number 1 is that you'll lose items if you leave them in the house. This is the most prevalent Phasmophobia myth that I feel like literally everyone believes. For the first few months of playing this game with my friends, we would literally always put ourselves in danger going back into the house to retrieve items that we left in the house for no reason. You do not lose items if you leave them in the house. The lore reason for this is that basically you go home where it's safe, and then in the morning when the ghost is no longer like out and about, you go retrieve your items at that time. Everybody knows that if it's 6 a.m., a ghost is going to be sleeping. Those things are nocturnal. So they no longer care about you at that point, and then it's safe to retrieve your items. So myth number 2 is that the radio guy at the beginning of the contract gives valuable information. That guy's literally just yapping. He's a yapper. He's fluent in Japanese. He loves to yap, and that is about it. Related to this, I want to mention that there's always a cursed item in every single house, no matter what, despite the fact that he only mentions them sometimes. Like, that guy is so full of shit. He's not saying anything of importance, I promise. Myth number 3 is that you can find the ghost room with the Ouija board. You actually can't find the ghost room with the Ouija board. If you ask the ghost, where are you on the Ouija board, it will tell you where its current location is, which granted may be in the ghost room, but it also may not be in the ghost room. So there's no reliable way to find out where the ghost room is with the Ouija board. Myth number 5 is that mimic orbs look different from non-mimic orbs. This is not true. They look visually identical to real orbs. There is no way to tell mimic orbs apart from real orbs. The only way to find out whether you're dealing with a mimic or not is to make sure that you do not have more evidence than you need to. So mimic's evidence is spirit box, UV, and freezing. So if you got any of these 2 evidences plus orbs, it's probably a good idea to make sure that you're not also getting the 3rd evidence type. Once you get 4 evidences, you know that you're dealing with a mimic. Our next myth, which I think is myth number 5, though I may have called the last one myth number 5, I don't remember, is that ghosts can see through doors and walls. Ghosts can actually not see through either of those things. However, they can wander through doors and walls. So you're not exactly the safest person in the world if you hide behind a door during a hunt. However, in a pinch, you could hide there. It's not the most secure place, but you could hide there with a decent chance that you'll make it out alive. Myth number 7 is that the ghost keeps turning the breaker off. This is another one that my friends and I really struggled with when we first started playing this game, because we'd always be like, why is a ghost turning the breaker off again? Like, get a job. What are you doing, ma'am? However, what we did not realize is that if you turn too many lights on in a house, it will trip the breaker. So for reference, that's 9 lights in a small map. And if you don't know what a small map is, each house map is a small map. Those are the most important myths that I feel like people get tripped on a lot. I would be open to making a longer video with more myths in the future if anyone's interested. That's about it for this video. And for all my recruits out there, new and old, best of luck. I believe in you. You can do it. Bye now.